Okay guys, you should have this note sheet, and on the front you have finding the mode, and on the back you should have finding the range. So we're going to start with finding the mode. So first what we need to do is define mode. What is mode? So the mode is the data value or the number that appears most often. Okay, so I'm going to put at the bottom mode most. Okay, so they're both starting with that M-O, M-O. Okay, so when you think of mode, you should think of most. What number do you see the most of? Or what number appears the most in the data that you're given? Okay, number 2 says mode is a measure of central tendency. And this is the word that we learned or we had yesterday with mean and median. And remember, all that is you're measuring for the center of the data. Okay, so it's still related to the central part of the data. Number 3 says the mode can be found of data that is numerical, which would be just like mean and median. So that means you can have data that involves numbers. But mode can also be data that is non-numerical. Okay? So what that means is you can have data that consists of numbers, and you can have data that doesn't have numbers in it. Alright, number 4 says the mode is most helpful when the data is not numerical. Number 5 says a set of data can have one mode. So that means it can have one number that appears the most often. It can have more than one mode, or no mode. So you're either going to have one, more than one, or no mode at all. Okay, and you'll understand that a little bit more when we do our examples. Number 6 says a set of data can have no mode when each data item occurs the same number of times. So if all the data is appearing 2 times, 1 time, 6 times, then you don't have a mode. You don't have one single item or number that's appearing more often than the others. Okay? So we're going to start with this first example of no, no, yes, no, yes, yes, no, yes. So this would be an example like we were taking a poll and we were asking a question, and you could either say yes or no. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 no's. So I'm going to say no's, we had 4. And yeses, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means the mode for this set of data would be yes, because yes occurs more often than no. We have 5 yeses and 4 no's. Okay? So now let's look at a numerical set of data. So this was not numerical. This is numerical. I think that when you're looking at numerical data, it's easier to look at it if it's in order from least to greatest. You don't have to do this, but I feel like it's easier because all of the same numbers will be grouped together. So I'm going to put them in order from least to greatest. So I'm just going to write this right here, just as a little note. So 0, 5, oh, I missed 4. 4, 5, 6, and then I have 1, 2, 3 8, 8, 8, 8, and then I have 1, 2 9s, and now I have 1, 2, 3 10s. Okay, so for this set of data, 0 appears one time, 4 appears one time, 5 appears one time, 6 appears one time. Then we have 3 8s, we have 2 9s, and we have 3 10s. So the mode for this data would be 8 and 10 because both numbers appear 3 times. Okay, and if you notice when it's ordered from least to greatest, you can see the numbers that are appearing multiple times. So that's why I say ordering least to greatest is a little bit easier because it groups those same items together. Okay, so for this one there are 2 modes. So for example 1, there was 1 mode. For example 2, there was more than 1 mode. Okay? Alright, I want you to try example 3 and 4. Okay, so example 3, if we look at it, I don't see any number that appears more than 1 time. So what that would mean is if we read number 6 in our notes up here, it says a set of data can have no mode when each data item occurs the same number of times. So for number 3, it would be that we have no mode because there's not a number in this set of data that appears more than 1 time. It's all appearing 1 time, so there is no mode. Okay? Then if we look at example 4, you should be able to pull out that green is here twice, where purple is once, blue is once, and red is once. So our mode for example 4 is green. Okay? Let's go ahead and flip over to the back. And now we're going to talk about finding range. So we've talked about mean, which is the average. We've talked about median, which is the middle number. So you have to order from least to greatest and then find the middle, median, middle. Then we talked about mode, which is what occurs the most, mode, most. So now we're going to talk about range. Okay, this will be the last one that we talk about for this little portion of this cluster. So number 1 says, a measure of variation is a measure that describes the distribution of a data set. So all that means is variation means how something varies, how it is laid out, how it's distributed and given to you. So the range is going to measure how the data is laid out, okay? So if we were going to give a definition for range, we would say it's the difference between the greatest value and the least value in a data set. So in other words, all you're doing is taking the biggest number and subtracting, difference is our keyword there, the smallest number from it. So biggest minus the smallest, that's all range is. Okay? So just like it said in number 1, range is a measure of variation. Okay, that's just how it's laid out. Number 4 says, to find the range of a data set, identify the greatest value. So find the biggest number. And find the least value. Find the smallest number. Number 5 says, then subtract, just like I said earlier, the least value from the greatest value. So all you do is take big minus the small. Okay? Number 6 says, the range can only be found of a numerical data set, which should make sense because we can't subtract blue from green, but we can subtract 54 from 90. Okay, so we're going to start with this example here. So first we need to locate, if we're looking at number 4, we need to find or locate the greatest number. So looking at this set of data, 20 is our greatest number. Okay? Now we need to find the smallest number. So our smallest number is 2. So all we do is say the big number minus the small number, and that should give us 18. So our range is 18. And it's just that simple. Nothing more to it. So now you try example 2. Okay, with example 2, you should have said that 120 is our greatest number. 35 is our smallest number. So if we say 120 minus 35, you have a calculator. So this should be 85. So our range is 85. All right, I want you to go ahead and do examples 3 and 4. Okay, for example 3, you should have pulled out 89 as the biggest number, 12 as the smallest number. 89 minus 12 should give you 77 for your range. And then for example 4, you should have pulled out 37 as your biggest number and 11 as your smallest number, and 37 minus 11 is 26. Okay? And that's all there is to it. You've now learned about mean, median, mode, and range. So now what I want you to do is come and get this practice sheet from me. You have practice on mode. There are 7 problems. And practice on range. There are 7 problems. And this is for a grade today.